Alright guys, welcome to my channel. This is Crypto Tyke, and today I'm going to be talking about the UK government and plans for stablecoins. Yep. If you don't believe that there isn't, I'm not saying conspiracy, it's just a well-known fact, but most transparent of all is that the banks are pressuring the government to limit the amount of stable coins people in the UK can own. Now, funnily enough, this week I got a letter from the bank just kindly informing me that my interest rates on my bank account are going down from 1.3% to 1.15%. Thanks very much. It was already not worthwhile holding big amounts of money in the bank in the first place, hence why I got into crypto and other trading as well, but crypto is the biggest part of it. Anyway, that aside, now it would seem pressure is being built up to ensure people in the UK can only own a certain amount of stable coins, and a certain number of different stable coins as well, I think, is included in that. Note that they're not so, at the moment, by the way, bothered about how many different types of crypto, how many altcoins you own, or Bitcoin, but they are bothered about you having stable coins. Now, why is this? Well, as I've said before, and a few people will tell you, it's not hard to find this out, but the governments, and this is not just about Labour or Conservatives, just any government and the wealthy elites, which include the bankers, they don't want you getting wealthy. In fact, they make a lot of money from you having to use their services, e.g. a bank. It's what your wage gets paid into, etc., etc., and every transaction that gets charged by the bank, they always make some money off of it. Funnily enough, I was talking to a guy in a fish and chip shop who was complaining about the same thing, and I don't blame him. So, what this means is, now, I've only recently transferred to using US dollars so I can track prices, and this has meant that my transactions are now in USDG, which is a stable coin. So, when I've got USDG, the first thing I notice is that I get 4.1% interest while holding my... You see where I'm going with this? 1.15% if I have my pounds in the bank, which doesn't even keep you in line with inflation, or 4.1% having it in stable coins. Now, the banks don't get any of that money if you have it in stable coins, so the banks want you to keep it in the bank, which is why from being a kid at school you get told, get a job, go to work, put your money in the bank and save. Funnily enough, it's the worst thing to do, because as I've mentioned before, if you put away 10 grand now and you come back to it in 20 years time, you'll find you've pretty much halved your buying power. It might say more than 10 grand because of that tiny bit of interest you get on paper and printed in front of you, but in fact it's more about 7 grand, 7.5 grand you've probably got in the bank. It could be worse than that in reality in buying terms. So it's not in the interest of the banks to have us moving our money out of the banks into stable coins, and in this country especially, the banks have big sway, and successive governments will pander to what the banks say, and there's a fair chance they're going to limit how much we can have in stable coins if we're from the UK, which is absolutely fucking disgraceful if that goes through. It's just a classic that if you are on the fence about whether the elites want you to stay in the same loop and, you know, never be quite out of that, it's just different levels. There's people who have assets and people who don't, and those at the very top, they just have assets and assets and assets, and they go to the bank, release liquidity from those assets, and that's what they live on, because money is just for spending or buying more assets with. You shouldn't leave it sitting around. So everything you've been taught from childhood is wrong when it comes to what to do with your money. Don't put it in the bank, don't save it. And the banks are now fighting back against that because people are moving the money out because it's much smarter to have your money on a stable coin where you can get more interest than it is to have it lying around in the bank as your government after government prints money, devaluing the money that you spend anyway, and the interest you get is absolutely pitiful, and it doesn't keep you even in line with inflation. So I just wanted to have a little rant about that because it pissed me off hearing that, but it does just make it transparent really what the powerful want, and that powerful group are the bankers, the banks, and obviously the government will pander to them, and it's not really caring about the best interests of us. You know, they've tried to put people off of crypto, making warnings, even bigger warnings. You know, you will lose all your money if you invest on crypto. They say when it comes to gambling, it says when the fun stops, stop, with fun in big capital letters. So that's the main word you see in that sentence that most people wouldn't read. Or now gamble responsibly. Doesn't say if you back this horse you could lose all your money. No. So why does it say that for crypto? And why are they trying to stop you getting stable coins or too many stable coins when they're the least risky? They're not necessarily putting caps on you going out and buying whatever shit coin and losing your money, but they are putting limits, or thinking about putting limits, which probably end up happening, on how many stablecoin you hold. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to abide by that if the government bring it in and you're from the UK? Or are you just going to go, fuck you, and find ways of having as many stable coins as you possibly can, rather than have that money lying in the banks who have been absolutely screwing you for years? Let me know in the comments. And you know, can you see it for what it is? I mean, most people don't realise this. It's only when you really get into crypto you start to feel it and understand it more. But your average person who does a 9-to-5 job and puts his money in the bank, works really, really hard, believes that he or she is protected by the banks and the government. I mean, nobody tends to trust governments, but yet they still trust that at the end of the day they still have our best interests at heart when it comes to these matters, and they know best. Well, they do know best, and it might be a hint at why not having your money in the bank, certainly not putting it under your bed, by the way, because same thing happens to it anyway. You know, it's like having a little burglar come in every month and take a little bit of your money away without you even noticing. But that aside, that's everything I want to say on the subject for now. I'm sure I'll talk about it again, but let me know your thoughts in the comments, and do leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you're wanting to hear about crypto and finances from a UK perspective. As I've mentioned before, I started from scratch, selling things in my attic and on eBay to make enough to go into crypto, and that's how I prefer my money. I prefer my money to be working for me rather than doing fuck all, and it's a progressive journey. So I'm not loaded, and if I had nothing to start with, and it's just better than leaving it in the bank, in my opinion. And the results are looking pretty good at the moment, although I will have to start planning on when to take profits. But that's another story for another day. I shall catch you guys later, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.